The Fifth Element wasn't just a sci-fi movie, it was chaos in couture, a film that dropped a flying taxi into a neon war zone and made opera sound like the future. But behind the wild costumes and cosmic noise, nothing was easy. The script took decades to finish. The villain and hero never even shared a scene, and the man first chosen to play Ruby Rhod refused to wear the wig. These are 20 weird facts about The Fifth Element, and buried in the mayhem, a diva costume that fit Luc Besson's wife. Just as he fell for someone else, call for multipass, because this ship doesn't slow down for logic. 1. A teenager's escape. Became a sci-fi giant. Long before the flying cars and laser battles, there was just a boy alone in a small village in France. Luc Besson didn't grow up in Hollywood dreams. He had no movie family, no film schools, no big connections. What he did have was isolation and imagination. At 16, he started writing what would later become The Fifth Element. Back then, it wasn't meant to be a movie. It was his private escape, a place to hide from the real world. He created Lilu, Zorg, the Mondashawans, whole worlds inside notebooks. It took more than 20 years before those pages turned into one of the most expensive sci-fi movies ever made. But even when the film hit theaters, you could still feel the lonely teenager inside it, writing his way out of silence. 2. The original story was a 400-page epic. Luc Besson didn't just write a movie, he wrote a whole universe. The first draft wasn't a script. It was a galaxy-spanning epic over 400 pages long. At first, it wasn't even one film, it was a planned trilogy with multiple planets, alien species, and full histories. Besson invented political councils, alien religions, and background characters with huge backstories, only to cut them later. When studios pushed back, saying it was too long and too risky, he did the unthinkable. He cut it all down to one movie. What we saw in theaters was just a slice of a much bigger universe. The rest still lives in his notebooks, waiting for a future trip. 3. Corbin Dallas. Almost looked very different. Even with the script ready, the hero almost had a very different face. Before Bruce Willis signed on, the studio had another choice. Mel Gibson. Fresh off Braveheart, Gibson was a global star with box office power. But Besson hesitated. Gibson's style was too brooding, too dark. He needed someone who could smile in the middle of chaos. When Willis said yes, everything clicked. Corbin Dallas became more than a soldier. He became a reluctant hero with bad luck, dry humor, and a cab full of destiny. With Gibson, the film might have been darker and colder. With Willis, it soared. 4. Gary Oldman. Did it as a favor. Gary Oldman didn't audition, didn't chase the role, and barely read the script. He said yes as a personal favor. A few years earlier, Luc Besson had helped produce Oldman's passion project, Kneel by Mouth. So when Besson asked him to play Zorg, Oldman agreed without thinking twice. But later he admitted he had no idea what the story was about. Still, he showed up in plastic helmets and wild costumes, channeling Texas oil barons and cartoon villains all at once. He even said later he hated the movie. But fans? They loved every second of his bizarre performance. 5. The search for Lilu was huge casting. Lilu was a massive challenge. Over 8,000 actresses auditioned. Some were rising stars, some already famous. Elizabeth Berkley, fresh off Showgirls, gave a bold reading. Others came in with strong accents and practiced alien grace. But none of them felt truly different. Then Mila Jovovich walked in. She didn't try to dominate the room. She simply felt like she didn't belong to Earth. Luc Besson said the second she spoke, he knew she was Lilu. Out of thousands, they chose the one who felt like a mystery. And when she put on the orange straps, she didn't just wear them, she made them iconic. 6. The diva was played by the director's wife. On screen, the blue-skinned diva Plava Laguna holds the key to saving the world. But off-screen, she was played by Mai Wen, Luc Besson's wife at the time. She was a French actress and filmmaker in her own right. Tall, striking, and hidden under heavy blue makeup, she stunned the crew with her silent movements and stage presence. Her opera performance became one of the most unforgettable moments in science fiction. But behind the scenes, life was shifting. While directing, Besson began falling for Mila Jovovich, who played Lilu. By the time filming wrapped, Besson had separated from Mai Wen and was openly with Mila. The diva on screen sang about love and sacrifice. In reality, her story was bittersweet. Two women, both luminous, both tied to the film. each carrying a very different kind of heartbreak. 7. Lilu spoke a real alien language. Lilu's strange futuristic speech wasn't random. Luc Besson actually invented a language just for her. It had over 400 words, with its own grammar and rhythm. Mila Jovovich and Besson practiced it together until she could speak fluently. They even used it off-screen, writing secret notes and love letters in this private alien tongue. In the film, every syllable you hear from Lilu is not gibberish. It's a carefully built language, alien on screen, intimate in real life. And even years later, fans still try to learn and recreate the divine language. 8. Mila Jovovich did most of her own stunts. Lilu wasn't just the film's savior, she was its unstoppable fighter. And most of those fights came directly from Mila Jovovich herself. She trained for months, learning martial arts, wire stunts, and fast combat. Unlike many stars, she didn't just let a stunt double do the hard parts. She wanted Lilu to feel real. In the famous corridor fight, where Lilu takes down armed guards, that's Mila throwing the punches and kicks. No tricks, no hiding. She risked bruises, cuts, and long, exhausting takes just to give the role authenticity. Her dedication transformed her from model to action hero, and that's why Lilu feels so alive, because Mila fought every battle herself. 9. Zorg's supergun really worked. The giant all-in-one weapon Zorg shows off wasn't just sci-fi nonsense. Parts of it actually worked. The prop team designed the gun with multiple fake attachments, rocket launchers, nets, darts, but the flamethrower was real. During testing, it nearly burned down the set when the flames shot too high and hit the ceiling. No one was hurt, but it scared the crew. Still, Luc Besson loved it. He wanted danger to feel real. And in a way, it showed the film's spirit. Nothing was safe, not even the props. 10. The alien suits were almost deadly. The giant Mondoshawan aliens in the opening scene moved painfully slow. But that wasn't acting. It was survival. Each suit weighed about 80 pounds. They were made of thick foam with no air vents or cooling systems. Inside, the actors were sweating and overheating. One performer even collapsed from heat exhaustion and had to be pulled out immediately. What looked like calm, heavy movements was actually desperation. Step by step, they struggled to breathe. On screen, they looked like majestic alien guardians. Off-screen, they were humans fighting not to faint inside costumes that felt like ovens, eye or miniatures for huge blasts. Not the Fifth Element. When the Divas concert hall gets destroyed, the crew blew up a real building interior. It was the largest indoor explosion ever captured on film at the time. The stunt was risky. Walls rigged to collapse, dozens of cameras rolling, and fire marshals standing by. They had only one chance to get it right. When the charges went off, the set roared with fire and falling debris. It was dangerous, chaotic, and completely real. What you see on screen is not a trick. It's a once-in-a-lifetime shot that turned into movie history. 13. The hero and villain never meet. Here's something strange. Bruce Willis and Gary Oldman, Corbin Dallas and Zorg never share a single scene. It wasn't an accident. Luc Besson wrote it that way on purpose. He wanted their conflict to be indirect, like two forces crashing into each other without ever standing face to face. It's a risky move, because most films rely on the hero-villain showdown. But in The Fifth Element, the tension works differently. The villain sets traps, the hero stumbles into them, and their paths collide without eye contact. Sometimes, the most powerful enemy is the one you never actually meet. 14. Sci-fi in full daylight. Most science fiction hides in the shadows. Dark ships, moody corridors, glowing buttons in the dark. But Luc Besson refused. He believed the future didn't have to be cold, so he shot much of the action in full daylight. Taxi chases in blue skies, gunfights in bright white halls, explosions against golden clouds. This exposed every detail of costumes, props, and effects. No shadows to hide mistakes. It was risky, but it gave the movie its unique look. Instead of gloomy and gray, The Fifth Element was vibrant, colorful, and alive. It didn't want you to squint at the future, it wanted you to stare at it in awe. 15. Ruby Road was almost played by Prince. Before Chris Tucker screamed his way into the role, Luc Besson wanted Prince as Ruby Rod. It made sense. Prince had the voice, the wild fashion, and the gender-bending style. He even read the script and liked it, But when he saw the costumes, he refused. Jean-Paul Gaultier's designs felt too feminine, even for him. So, Prince backed out. The role went to Chris Tucker, who played it completely differently. Fast-talking, high-pitched, and hilarious. Tucker even mixed in Michael Jackson-inspired dance moves to make Ruby unforgettable. 16. From booze to cult classic. When The Fifth Element premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, the reaction was brutal. People actually booed. Critics called it silly, loud, and nonsensical. Some said it looked more like a fashion show than a movie. But while critics rolled their eyes, audiences leaned in. Younger viewers especially loved it. They quoted Ruby Rhod, obsessed over Lilu's orange straps, and replayed the diva's opera scene again and again. Over time, the bad reviews faded, but the fandom grew stronger. Today, the movie stands as a cult classic, not in spite of its weirdness, but because of it. The very things critics hated are exactly what fans cherish. 17. 1,000 costumes for a whole universe. Most movies design costumes for their lead cast. Luc Besson wanted more. He wanted every single character, even background extras, to look like they belonged to a unique galaxy. So he called in fashion legend Jean-Paul Gaultier. The result? Over 1,000 handmade costumes. Every alien race, every human group, every worker in the background had their own fashion code. The Mondashawans looked like armored priests. The Mangalores looked like ragged mercenaries. Even cab drivers and flight attendants had custom outfits. No one wore generic sci-fi clothes. Instead, the whole universe was stitched together with couture. 18. Spaceships inspired by ancient Egypt. The Mondoshawan ships in the opening weren't just futuristic. They were designed to feel ancient. Luc Besson told his team to base their shapes on Egyptian temples and sun symbols. Rounded tops, thick bases, and sacred geometry were built into the ship designs. The hidden idea? Maybe aliens didn't just visit Earth. Maybe they were behind humanity's earliest monuments. By tying futuristic ships to ancient myths, Besson made the story feel like past and future colliding at once. Even the spaceships carried secrets. 19. The city was built by hand. The flying car cityscapes looked like cutting-edge CGI, but the truth is, most of it was built by hand. The effects team created miniature skyscrapers, layered traffic lanes, and tiny neon signs. Motion control cameras filmed the models, while computers added flying cars later. It was a mix of old-school techniques and digital polish. That's why the city feels so real. You're looking at actual buildings, not just pixels. The future was handmade, one tiny tower at a time. 20. A French film that spoke English. Even though The Fifth Element was France's most expensive movie ever, it wasn't shot in French. Luc Besson knew that for a film this wild to succeed, it needed a global audience. So he cast American stars, hired British crews, and filmed in English at Pinewood Studios in London. It was still a French production at heart, but it spoke the language of Hollywood blockbusters. The gamble worked. What could have been too French for the world became a global hit, mixing European imagination with American star power. Bonus fact: the power of multipass. Multipass was never written as a big catchphrase. It was just a small, funny line. But the way Mila Jovovich said it, mispronounced, broken, but full of charm, made it unforgettable. Fans instantly picked it up, repeating it at conventions, writing it on signs, even sneaking it into video games. Today, multipass is a sci-fi inside joke, a single word that captures the playful chaos of The Fifth Element. The Fifth Element was too loud, too bright, too strange. And that's exactly why it survived. Luc Besson started writing it as a lonely teenager, but it grew into one of the most colorful sci-fi worlds ever filmed. It lives on in cosplay, video games, fan tattoos, and late-night rewatches. A movie that ignored the rules, lit a match, and just let it burn. So, does this one still live rent-free in your mind? Drop a comment and tell us which legendary film we should dive into next. Because sometimes, the weirdest stories make the best cinema.